Jean hid in the cupboard, spying. The man, unaware, took off his coat. It was clear that the man was not human at all. Not long after, a woman walked in. She reached into the man's shirt. The two were about to engage in an act.
I do so hate skeletons in the closet.
Why was Jean spying on the man? How did he know there was someone in the cupboard? The man was called Dawn. He was the leader of the Shadow Society. The man planned to control supernatural beings and ultimately rule the world. However, recently, he encountered trouble. Not long ago, Sri Lanka reported a news item about supernatural powers. A well-known local Dr. Robert was calm and composed. He was loved by children. One day, a runaway truck crashed into the clinic. A child was trapped under the vehicle. In an emergency, he lifted the fully loaded truck with his bare hands. However, even more bizarrely, the kind Robert seemed to have changed completely. He actually intended to crush the injured child. If not for the father's timely intervention, the consequences would have been unimaginable. This incident caused a stir in the area, but when the father saw the newspaper, his face was filled with seriousness and worry. Clearly, he knew some secrets.
That we would keep the boy away from the world, and the world away from him.
The newspaper made its way across the ocean. Upon seeing the report, a law firm executive immediately called his assistant. The two seemed to be very familiar with Robert. He quickly sent a telegram, inviting him to London as a guest. He indicated that there was a family inheritance to be claimed. What hidden story lay behind this? What secrets did Robert's background hold? However, when the father saw the letter, his expression grew increasingly serious. Not long after, he called his son for a private meeting. He handed his son a box. He stated that this was an 8-week supply. What exactly was inside the box? And what was the relationship to Robert's earlier display of strength? Not long after, Robert arrived at the train station. At this moment, his father suddenly stated that his favorite coat belonged to Robert's biological father. He had only adopted him. Upon hearing this news, Robert was profoundly shocked. In the next moment, he seemed to transform into a different person. He threatened passing women, and even insulted his adoptive parents. He was no longer the gentle person he used to be. What caused this dramatic change in him? Meanwhile, in a hidden location in London, a fully armed team was carefully searching. Suddenly, a monster appeared before everyone. It spoke words that instilled fear.
The old gods are rising.
The monster was brought down, shot quickly and accurately within 7 steps. However, the most terrifying part was that the superior said it was a prophet. Though it could create panic, it would never lie. Could it really be true? As the monster said that a god would descend to earth, the superior stated they must quickly expand their ranks, and he designated Robert from the newspaper. At this moment, Robert was unaware that, before he even arrived in London, he was already being targeted. He regretted his attitude towards his adoptive parents, but soon, he became immersed in the splendor of London. As soon as he disembarked, he encountered a beautiful woman. Robert instantly fell for her. He saw the woman being kidnapped. He rushed in to prepare a rescue. However, there were many kidnappers. Robert had no ability to resist, but at this moment, he suddenly felt filled with power. In an instant, he knocked several of them away. The leader sensed something was wrong, and tried to escape, only to be knocked down. Afterwards, Robert thought he would receive the woman's gratitude, but unexpectedly, he was slapped. Not long after, the supervisor's assistant brought Robert to the law firm. Through conversation with Supervisor Max, he learned that Robert's father was named Lewis, and had gone missing many years ago. While sorting through his father's belongings, the supervisor discovered a document that had not been burned. This was how they found Robert's identity information. However, compared to his identity, the most complicated aspect was the source of his wealth. Lewis's father Edward also suddenly went missing one day. Edward's friend Henry had bequeathed all his inheritance to him. Therefore, Robert was set to inherit the assets of 2 families. During his discussions with the lawyer, Dawn finally understood. He arrived at Robert's home. He sent his undead zombies to surround his adoptive parents' house. He demanded to know Robert's whereabouts. They refused to cooperate. Dawn controlled the zombies to extract a confession. In the end, he confirmed through a photo sent by Robert that Robert had already gone to London. The adoptive parents had lost their value. Dawn set the house on fire, leaving them to fend for themselves. Meanwhile, in London, Robert was completely unaware. He planned to go to the woman's house to continue their conversation, because Robert had saved her the day before. The woman invited him in for a drink. At this moment, Robert learned that her name was Clark. However, the pleasant time was brief. After the bell rang, Clark stated that she had something to attend to. Thus, Robert said he would leave, but the woman said she hoped Robert could stay a little longer, so they could have a deeper conversation. The woman's change in attitude clearly hinted at the secrets hidden behind. Indeed, during Robert's absence, a man broke into his room. He searched and found the box. By the time Robert returned to the hotel, he just missed the man. However, he didn't have time to return to his room before receiving a telegram from Ceylon, informing him of his adoptive parents' fate. Robert instantly broke down mentally, falling into madness. He violently wrecked everything in the hotel. His veins bulged, as if he had transformed into a monster. He did not notice that the medication in the box had been stolen. The thief was named Vax. He is a shapeshifter. Belonging to the Military Intelligence Office of Aberrant Beings, abbreviated as MIO. At this time, they learned that Robert's family had been attacked. They suspected that it was the work of their old rival, the Shadow Society. Therefore, they had to quickly recruit Robert. Meanwhile, on the other side, the completely mad Robert was recklessly destroying everything around him. Anyone who tried to stop him would be taught a lesson. His actions revealed his evil and madness. He mocked and provoked the crowd in the tavern.
Is it really my fault if things get broken when I'm having fun?
He even attempted to make contact with the tavern owner's daughter. Ultimately, he drew the ire of the crowd, but those ordinary people could not inflict any harm on him at all. The tavern was in complete chaos. Ultimately, it was the firearms that quelled the disorder. However, Robert was ambushed and stabbed. To prevent him from dying in the tavern, the owner asked his daughter to distract Robert. Taking the opportunity, he drew a dagger. The pain caused Robert to transform into a monster. On the other side, Robert went missing. After being attacked in the tavern, the intelligence officers became frantic. According to their reports, Robert was a monster, born from the dream of reason, possessing numerous abilities, but certainly not the ability to disappear. Therefore, the current situation was trending towards chaos. They had to locate their target. Meanwhile, Robert woke up in Bella's bed. He had been unconscious for 3 days. However, surprisingly, his wounds were healed. This was clearly illogical. This caught Bella's attention, but Robert began to fidget, hastily trying to escape the scene. He bumped into a man wearing an eye patch. Little did he know that he was the one sent by Dawn to hunt him down. Meanwhile, the leader of the Shadow Society was on a boat heading to London. However, the pickpocket Carter targeted him. Dawn returned to his room. Carter hid in the wardrobe, observing. Thus, he discovered a body that did not belong to a human. At this moment, the woman, Farola, pushed the door open. The two became intimate. But suddenly, Dawn fired his gun, killing Carter. He threw Carter into a box. Inside the box were Dawn's loyal undead zombies. This solved the problem and provided a meal for his subordinates. However, at this time, Robert did not trust them. He was more concerned about the mystery surrounding him. Therefore, the group split up to explore the interior of the manor, hoping to find useful information. During this time, Clark became increasingly proactive, as if scheming something, but she was interrupted by the intruding assistant supervisor. He stated that Max needed to discuss something with her. In fact, it was mainly to inquire about Robert's whereabouts during his disappearance. This was how they learned that he had been stabbed in the tavern, and there were no wounds. Max thought he was going crazy, but Robert mentioned the tavern owner, Gasson. The supervisor immediately recalled that Henry had a servant, whose name was Gasson. The age also matched. Perhaps it was the same person. Therefore, the two went to the tavern to investigate. When Max mentioned Henry to Gasson, he immediately became evasive. He fled the scene. Clearly, the old man knew something, but at that moment, Bella stepped in to stop Max. Thus, he had no choice but to leave. Meanwhile, Robert had unknowingly transformed into a state of evil madness. He happened to encounter Gasson. As he was leaving, he was kidnapped. Through interrogation of the leader, the one-eyed leader, Sellers, Robert learned that he had already been targeted by the Shadow Society. As for more details, the one-eyed leader stated that they wouldn't dare to speak, even if he were killed. Robert brought Gasson back to the manor for questioning. However, as soon as he returned to the manor, he fell into a deep sleep. Gasson told Max not to worry, that it was just a recovery process. Then he informed him that all the truth was in the basement. Gasson approached a wall, which was the entrance to the basement. Just then, Robert woke up again, returning to his gentle demeanor. When they arrived in the basement, Robert was shocked. The entire basement was filled with experimental equipment. Through Gasson's explanation, they learned that Henry had conducted experiments here with him. They eventually developed a type of drug. It could split a person's good and evil. After drinking it, he transformed into the evil monster, Edward. Therefore, Robert, as the heir, also possessed the ability to transform into a monster. Upon uncovering the truth, Robert decided to continue using the laboratory to research a solution for the drug that splits good and evil. Henry achieved transformation through 2 types of potions, but Robert had only consumed the medication given to him by his adoptive father. Clearly, there was something wrong. Now, his medication had been stolen, and the evil persona was becoming increasingly difficult to control. However, producing the controlling potion required a special ingredient, monocaine oil. When diluted, this drug could control the evil persona, but if used in excess, it would directly decompose the human body. The problem was that the laboratory currently did not have this ingredient. However, Dawn had a sufficient quantity to verify whether it was as miraculous as rumored. He directly experimented on his subordinates. Meanwhile, Robert lost control once again. However, coincidentally, Clark came to visit. To avoid exposing himself in front of her, Robert chose to take the medication left behind by Henry. This controlled the evil persona, but it also caused Robert to fall into a coma. On the other side, the intelligence department finally deciphered the composition of the drug. However, the core ingredient, monocaine oil's origin, had long been controlled by the Shadow Society. The intelligence department's stock had been depleted. The perspective shifted back to Robert. After an unknown amount of time, he finally woke up, but Clark had already left. Gasson expressed relief. Thankfully, Robert had controlled the evil persona in time. Otherwise, he might have ended up like Henry, who was controlled by the evil persona and sullied the actress, Maggie. This ultimately led to a terrible outcome. It resulted in the birth of Robert's father, Lewis. Upon hearing this, Robert felt a chill of fear. He sought out Clark to request the end of their relationship. However, she stated that she could help him. It turned out that Clark was a chemistry genius. Robert was very pleased. Their relationship quickly grew closer. From then on, they continuously researched to improve the drug. However, a conspiracy was closing in. One day, Max discovered news about Maggie. Robert immediately followed him there. As soon as she saw them, she prepared to shut the door. Even with Gasson and Robert present, Maggie showed no mercy. Even worse, the Shadow Society arrived in cars and began firing at them. In a moment of desperation, the group had no choice but to break the window to rush into the room. But unexpectedly, the Shadow Society was well prepared. They released the monster, the Cutter, which instantly destroyed the door. They yanked Robert out. The one-eyed leader took the opportunity to attack him. In this critical situation, the evil persona took control of his body, but facing the powerful Cutter, he was still at a disadvantage. Finally, he managed to break one of its pincers and quickly escaped the scene. There were many more terrible things to come. Maggie was injured when escaping, unfortunately shot. Even though Robert was skilled in medicine, the wound became infected, resulting in sepsis. Even taken to the hospital, there was nothing that could be done. Robert was unwilling to give up. At this moment, Gasson reminded him that he could use the healing components in Robert's body to create a potion to help Maggie recover. The extracted blood looked just like that of an ordinary person. Therefore, Robert hurried to seek help from Clark. However, he unexpectedly ran into her boyfriend, Harry. The situation became awkward. Robert lost control again. As the evil persona took control of his body, he returned to the tavern once more to look for Bella. Coincidentally, he encountered some thugs causing trouble. They were numerous and armed, especially with firearms. Bella was clearly no match for them. Robert seized the opportunity to showcase his strength and won Bella's heart in the process. Thus, that night, the two became closer. On the other side, the mastermind, Dawn, had already learned about Selaz's failure once again. he decided to punish him for it. Celes could only watch helplessly, as his subordinates turned into undead zombies. After a while, Farola took out a one-eyed toad. Dawn smiled as he placed it into Celes's empty eye socket.
It will take some time for the two of you to work.
Now, he had also become a monster. Through this eye, Celes could see visions of the future. The perspective shifted back to Robert. The next day, the good persona was in control of the body. He escaped the tavern and returned to the manor, but he found Gaston's attitude to be extremely poor. Through their conversation, he learned that, when he was under the control of the evil persona, he had come to the manor and damaged many pieces of equipment. But there was also good news. The blood of the evil persona could actually kill those bacteria. Robert planned to inject the blood into Maggie's body. After much hesitation, Gaston decided to take action himself. Just then, the assistant supervisor told Robert that there was a new discovery at the law firm. But when he arrived at the law firm, he found Dawn waiting for him there. Robert was still unaware that danger was closing in. In the next moment, members of the Shadow Society restrained him and the lawyer. When they came to again, they found Dawn preparing for a ritual. However, their clarity did not last long. Farola used monocaine oil to forcibly turn him into the evil persona. Facing the desire-driven Robert, Dawn promised numerous benefits. If he would only open the jar in front of him, what could possibly be inside? It would cause the entire Shadow Society so much trouble? However, the evil persona was not tempted. He smashed the jar towards Dawn. Seeing that Robert was about to break free, Dawn immediately took out the destructive monocaine oil. However, at this moment, an unexpected change occurred. Dawn was suddenly shot. It turned out that earlier, the shapeshifter had infiltrated the Shadow Society. Outside were snipers from the intelligence department. They had used monocaine oil to create 2 bullets. That was how they were able to kill Dawn. Unexpectedly, when he died, he released a massive burst of energy. Many people at the scene were affected, turning to ash. Taking advantage of the chaos, the shapeshifter snatched the jar. Robert and Max seized the opportunity to escape. But did Dawn really die so easily? On the other side, the intelligence department believed the mission had been successfully completed. They then began to recruit Robert with a deal he couldn't refuse, Ravi. It turned out that, after Dawn burned down Robert's adoptive father's house, he discovered Robert's brother, Ravi. He sent zombies after him, planning to use him as leverage. However, he was unexpectedly countered and escaped. In the end, he was taken away by the police. From that day on, Ravi lived in a prison cell. However, on this day, an old man suddenly arrived at the prison, but no one noticed the tattoo of the Shadow Society on his wrist. What was his true purpose? That night, the old man prepared to kill Ravi, but just then, someone attempted to escape. The loud noise attracted the guards, and the assassination plan failed as a result. To avoid losing track of his target, he had no choice but to escape with them. After Ravi escaped from prison, using the map left by his father, he arrived in a jungle. The old man followed him there. In this jungle, there was a basement that contained many of the drugs Robert had used, and even a large amount of research materials. Soon after, Ravi used the passport left in the basement to prepare to leave Ceylon and head to London. However, during the checkpoint inspection, he was attacked by undead zombies. Fortunately, a companion from the escape helped him. Otherwise, Ravi would have died. Taking advantage of the chaos, he successfully boarded a train and ditched the old man following him. Before he could act, he successfully arrived in London. However, this was the territory of the intelligence department, so Ravi was quickly captured. He eventually appeared in the intelligence department prison. Meanwhile, after Maggie injected the blood, not only did she recover from sepsis, but her complexion became rosy, as if she had become 10 years younger. Through conversations with Maggie, Robert learned that this ability was hereditary in their family. Henry had merely discovered the method to unlock it. Therefore, to uncover the truth, they needed to find more family members. Afterward, through Max's investigation, they learned that there was another branch of the family. However, before leaving, he needed to clarify the misunderstanding with Clark. Thus, Robert and Max set off. When the two arrived at their destination, they discovered that the head of the family had already died. Now, the family only had one widow, and in recent years, that area had frequently experienced unexplained deaths. But Robert did not believe at all that anything could threaten his evil persona. With that, he and Max headed to the manor. As they delved deeper, strange occurrences began to unfold. First, they encountered Gnawed Bone, and then, when they met the widow, Renata. Upon hearing that Robert was there to investigate the family history, she immediately prepared to shut the door. Robert hurried to stop her, but accidentally touched Renata. At this moment, strange things began to happen. After confirmation from the evil persona, Renata finally realized that they were on the same side. However, Robert was still unaware of why her attitude had changed. He continued to harbor suspicions about he. Not long after, he discovered that Renata had left the manor. What kind of secret was she hiding? That night, Robert had a nightmare. He saw the black dog once again, and his evil persona. Was there a connection to his previous encounters? Was there some sort of link? Awakened, Robert immediately searched for the suppressive medication. In his panic, he knocked over the drawer, which led him to discover documents hidden in the bottom compartment of the drawer. Upon seeing the contents, Robert quickly called for Max. It turned out that the room belonged to Renata's son, but he had vanished a long time ago. He had suddenly gone missing, making the manor unsafe. Robert and Max returned to the town once more. They inquired with the tavern owner about the missing persons cases here. They learned that someone had gone missing a week ago, and the location was near the manor. The two went to investigate the site of the disappearance, not noticing that something seemed to be following them. While they were focused on their investigation, Renata suddenly appeared, forcing them to leave. What was she trying to hide? On the other side, Robert was unwilling to give up, so he broke into the manor and found Renata's treasured journal. When they opened it, both were shocked. It contained records of numerous monsters, including the deceased Dawn. Clearly, the woman knew much more than they had imagined. Just then, a scream came from outside. The two immediately went out to investigate. They discovered a male corpse. Clearly, this was another unfortunate victim. They began to speculate that all of this was Renata's evil persona at work, but it appeared to take the shape of a black dog. Robert and Max hid inside the house. Unexpectedly, Renata rushed out of the room. Fortunately, Max knocked her out, or the consequences would have been unimaginable. When Renata woke up, she found only Max in front of her. Robert went back to the missing persons site again. Upon hearing this news, Renata reacted with great agitation. It turned out that the murderous black dog monster was not her, but her son, Brant. The family had guarded a weapon for generations. If Robert went there, he would surely be attacked. He could be in life-threatening danger. Meanwhile, on Robert's side, as he delved deeper into the family tomb, footsteps suddenly echoed around him. A sudden attack triggered the emergence of Robert's evil persona. The absolute disparity in strength instantly subdued Brant. Just then, Max arrived with Renata. Brant took the opportunity to throw Robert off, transforming into a black dog, and lunging at him. Max drew the family's protective weapon and pierced Brant's body with a sword, but he was also hit by Brant, bringing his life to an end. This investigation yielded no methods to dispel the evil, and he even lost his friend lawyer. The only thing that could be considered a gain was the journal documenting the monsters, but no one noticed that within the family tomb, a hand suddenly reached out. A few days later, Robert held Max's funeral. Suddenly, he received a package from his hometown. He opened it to check. It turned out to be a statue of a deity from his hometown. Who could have sent this, and what could it possibly imply? However, from the powers of this deity, Robert gained some inspiration. He planned to improve the suppressive medication, but unexpectedly, a fire broke out in the lab. He felt a sense of inner turmoil, so he went to the bar to drink away his troubles. There, he learned that this morning, the streets of London were chaotic. A new killer had recently emerged. Named Spring-Loaded Jack, he particularly enjoyed killing and removing the victim's organs. The only witness was named Ginny, who happened to be Bella's best friend. Robert was unconcerned. He remarked that he could easily handle it. With that, he went to the streets, investigating with his unique methods. He successfully discovered some strange materials, but at this moment, several thugs suddenly surrounded him. These mortals were easily dealt with by Robert. However, while he could handle the enemies in front of him, he was unprepared for the enemies behind him. When Robert came to from his unconsciousness, he found himself surrounded by the intelligence department. They intended to force Robert to join the intelligence department. In the end, out of desperation, Robert had no choice but to agree to cooperate for now. The first task was to deal with spring-loaded Jack. The intelligence department hoped that Robert would kill him. To be precise, only the evil persona was invited by the intelligence department. Although Robert was extremely dissatisfied, he had to endure it for Ravi's sake. With that, the two brothers were finally reunited. After returning to the manor, Ravi smashed the statue. It turned out that it contained a large amount of suppressive medication, enough to control the evil persona for a long time. At this moment, Gasson suddenly appeared and said that Bella had called. She was very angry. It turned out that, during Robert's disappearance, Bella's other best friend had also been killed by Jack. Seeing this scene, Robert was completely shocked. He vowed to make Jack pay the price. By surveying the scene, he discovered some strange slime. Following the trail, he finally saw a fully armed Birdman. The figure was flying with a jet-powered device, but in front of the evil persona, he was no match at all. At this moment, he finally realized that spring-loaded Jack was a black man. Robert pressed him, asking why he killed, but the black man refused to admit it. Just as he was about to take him out, Bella timely intervened to stop Robert. It turned out that spring-loaded Jack had killed again just now. Clearly, this black man was just an innocent bystander. At that moment, the guy finally said that his name was Nig. He had been tracking the murderer. The gear was left to him by his grandfather. He was the real spring-loaded Jack, but he had died many years ago. Moreover, their family never killed anyone. They were professional monster hunters. With that, Nig became Robert's companion. Thus, the trio officially formed a team. They returned to the site of Jack's first crime. Ravi was the first to make a discovery. It was a police officer's corpse. According to the analysis, it should be the work of the Grim Reaper bug from the Monster Journal. Clearly, that thing had already moved on. Robert immediately thought that Ginny had been at the scene. Perhaps that bug was inside her. So, he prepared to head to the tavern. Meanwhile, on Ginny's side, her body began to mutate. Next, Ginny started to attack Bella. If Robert hadn't arrived just in time, Bella would have been killed. However, to avoid hurting Ginny, Robert hesitated a bit. In the end, it was Bella's strong liquor that forced the Ginny controlled by the Grim Reaper bug to retreat. However, when Robert and the others went to check, they found that the Grim Reaper bug had already switched hosts. Nig was actually controlled by the Grim Reaper bug, and he quickly escaped using a device. Unexpectedly, Nig went to Dawn's corpse. Even more bizarre, he used his finger to resurrect him. On the other side, Robert's mission had failed. However, he submitted information about the Grim Reaper bug. As a result, the intelligence department officials did not make things difficult for Robert. They even provided him with more information. This bug liquefies the host's organs and then collects them. Perhaps this was the reason that Dawn was revived again. But Robert and the others were unaware of this. What he was more concerned about now was how to save Nig. Unknowingly, Robert found himself on the street. He encountered the old madman again. The man kept mumbling about a gigantic bat. Following the direction the madman indicated, Robert indeed found more corpses, and Nig, who was in the process of cocooning. Such a good opportunity. He naturally would not let it slip by. He immediately went to Clark to borrow an X-ray machine. He prepared to study the capabilities of the Grim Reaper bug. But when he returned, he saw that Nig had already woken up and flown away. Robert had no choice but to chase after him again, only to find that the intelligence department had already surrounded Nig, and before his eyes, they killed him. Thus, the Grim Reaper bug could only switch hosts. This time, it chose Ravi. Seeing that the intelligence department wanted to shoot, Robert had no choice but to escape with his brother. On the other side, Farola noticed that the Grim Reaper bug had not returned for a long time. He immediately asked Silas to use the frog's eye to observe. Soon, Silas saw Ravi's condition. At this moment, the Grim Reaper bug was going wild, but it was being restrained by Robert and Gasson. Silas was about to observe more closely, when he was suddenly hit by a flash of light. This unexpectedly interrupted the frog's eye observation. What could this be? It was actually the radiation from Robert's X-ray imaging. He accidentally discovered that the Grim Reaper bug despised X-rays. Perhaps this could be used to extract the bug. As time went on, Ravi's condition deteriorated further. Robert shot him twice. Was he really going to kill Ravi? Soon, the intelligence department realized that this was Robert's diversion tactic. He took the opportunity to move Ravi elsewhere, but during this time, he was observed again by the Frog's Eye. On the other side, Robert brought Ravi to Bella's tavern, hoping she could help hide him. At Gaston's pleading, Bella reluctantly agreed, but at this moment, someone suddenly requested to see her. Filled with questions, Bella went to check. Unexpectedly, the person directly kidnapped her. When she regained her bearings, she found herself in the intelligence department. They pressured her to reveal Robert's hiding place. Meanwhile, Robert was completely unaware of these events. Ravi's condition was becoming increasingly dire. Left with no choice, he had to use the monocaine oil in the medication, in a dosage that was harmful enough to the body, but not lethal, to force the Grim Reaper bug out of his body. But this dosage was very difficult to control. At this moment, Bella rushed back, hoping Robert would leave quickly. The intelligence department was hunting for related personnel. They would soon track him down here. However, the first to arrive was the Shadow Syndicate. Silas had already brought people here at some point, but he only allowed his subordinates to enter. Soon, Silas proved how wise he was. Those subordinates were quickly taken down, and became test subjects for the monocaine oil. The unfortunate ones were poisoned to death on the spot. Outside, Silas was waiting for his subordinates. Suspecting that something must have happened to them, he turned and fled. Not long after he left, Bella called the intelligence department chief. He was preparing to kill Ravi. Robert suddenly appeared from behind, and directly subdued the chief. It turned out that this was a plan the two had discussed. In the presence of the chief, Robert used the monocaine oil to successfully expel the Grim Reaper bug from Ravi's body. The Grim Reaper bug wanted to find a new host. With that, Robert forced the other party to cooperate, and then killed the Grim Reaper bug. Ravi survived successfully. However, a greater danger was approaching. Not long after, a nobleman had an appointment late at night. Unexpectedly, the other party turned out to be a vampire. Thus, the man was killed. The intelligence department soon received the news. The minister quickly pressured the chief, demanding that he capture the vampire within 3 days. Under pressure, the chief had no choice but to seek Robert's help again. Based on the traces left at the scene, he quickly found the vampire woman. The evil persona was actually in the woman's hands, and was at a disadvantage. The other party revealed a shocking news. She was actually Robert's sister. The trace was actually the blood of the evil persona. Only those of the same kind could see it. At this moment, the intelligence department arrived. The two had to find a secluded place first. Through their conversation, they learned that the woman's name was Aela. Just as Robert was about to learn more, Gaston interrupted, saying that Clark was looking for him. So, Robert had no choice but to deal with his girlfriend first. Clark noticed he seemed to be hiding something. In a moment of desperation, Robert directly proposed to her. Clark quickly replied that she needed to think it over. He saw his girlfriend off, and hurried back to check on Aela. He found that she was about to kill Ravi, but she claimed that she was only going to use the blood needle to take some food. After all, that was how she operated in the Shadow Syndicate. Upon hearing that Aela was from the Shadow Syndicate, Robert immediately went on guard. However, he heard even more astonishing news. The Shadow Syndicate was preparing to resurrect Dawn. Moreover, Aela, to gain his trust, actively sprayed the suppressive agent to transform into a normal persona. At this moment, Bella suddenly called. Robert immediately headed to the tavern, only to find the chief waiting for him there. Taking this opportunity, he informed the chief about Dawn, and proved with the blood needle he had eliminated the vampire. The chief then left in peace. He handed Robert a mysterious dossier. It contained a lot of information about families, especially a photo, which revealed that Aela was indeed his sister. Just then, Aela woke up as well, and recounted her experiences over the years, and Dawn was an immortal who had lived for centuries. Only Robert could truly eliminate him, with his pure bloodline. On the other side, due to the loss of the Grim Reaper bug's nourishment, the not yet fully revived Dawn began to rot once more. Seeing this scene, Aela had no choice but to send out another type of monster, the Leech, to hunt for resources to revive Dawn. Unbeknownst to her, Ravi glimpsed all of this in a dream. Gaston deduced that it might be due to the previous influence of the Grim Reaper bug. By consulting the monster journal, he learned that the monster was called the Blood Leech. It could replace vital organs, and might be the key to reviving Dawn. However, Aela overheard all of this. She hurriedly left the manor. What was she planning to do? Meanwhile, in the intelligence department, the chief was meeting with a top agent. To everyone's surprise, it turned out to be Clark. Could it be that all her previous behavior was just an act? However, Robert was clearly unaware of this. He was researching how to eliminate Dawn. Based on the scenes Ravi had seen, Robert arrived at that bridge. Sure enough, he found the blood leeches inside. He and Ravi followed the trail and ended up at a certain factory. There were countless blood leeches here. To protect Ravi, Robert was unfortunately injured. However, a greater danger was approaching. This monster could bite through steel pipes in one bite. The two could only flee in a hurry. At this moment, Aela appeared just in time. She managed to destroy the bug with a single jab. What on earth was going on? It turned out that on that day, Aela returned to the Shadow Syndicate's base and took a large quantity of monocaine oil. This allowed her to regain her evil persona. She dealt with Silas and others and obtained the battle plans of the Shadow Syndicate. That's how she was able to arrive in time to save Robert. But in the next moment, Aela directly attacked him, forcing him to transform into his evil persona. The intelligence department personnel also arrived at the scene. Not long ago, Clark found the chief and expressed that she had fallen in love with Robert. She was preparing to marry him, so she approached the chief to apply for resignation to marry. But she suddenly received news that there had been another vampire murder in the city. Thus, the intelligence department personnel came here. They did not ask for reasons, and immediately subdued Aela with monocaine oil. Seeing that they were outnumbered, Robert could only flee with his sister. After an unknown amount of time, Aela finally woke up. However, due to the effects of the monocaine oil, her evil persona was suppressed. Fortunately, they were hiding in Renata's manor, and the intelligence department couldn't track them down here for now. Otherwise, in her current state, it would be very dangerous. But she seemed a bit FF. It turned out that, just before Robert and the others arrived at the manor, Renata suddenly saw her deceased husband. That's why she seemed a bit off. However, it was actually a monster. Not long ago, a woman was wandering in the forest. Suddenly, she saw her boyfriend. The two immediately shared a passionate kiss. However, strangely, the woman instantly transformed into an old woman. The black man turned into a zombie. Moreover, this monster had no intention of stopping. Next, it turned its attention to Renata. Why was it hunting women everywhere? But Robert was unaware of all this. He was deep in thought in the forest. He suddenly felt a tremor. Robert followed the source to the family cemetery. At this moment, the strange tremor occurred again. Then, Clark suddenly appeared behind him. Robert didn't notice the absurdity of it. Clearly, this was the zombie that drained life energy. As for its origins, the Shadow Syndicate was already aware. It was called a Night Terror, a type of demon. It could take the form of a loved one, and then absorb their life essence. Therefore, Aela decided to capture this Night Terror, to use the life essence to revive Dawn. The perspective returned to Robert's side. Since the last precognitive event, Ravi discovered he was different. He had gained precognitive abilities.
King of Spades.
At this moment, the strange tremor occurred again. Ravi sensed that something was off here, so he activated his precognitive abilities and saw the Night Terror. At this moment, it was about to drain Renata. Ravi quickly called for help. Fortunately, Aela arrived just in time. Otherwise, Renata would have died. Seeing that the plan was exposed, the Night Terror hastily fled. Robert chased it to the cemetery. The monster transformed back into Clark, trapped by love. He did not suspect the person before him. At this moment, the evil persona took control of the body. As a result, Clark instantly transformed into Bella. Faced with her lies, the evil persona remained very calm. It saw through her and knocked her away with a punch. Robert suddenly noticed the crack in the mural. A strange blue light flickered through it. He was about to step forward to inspect it closely when Renata and Aela suddenly appeared. They told Robert that this mural was a gateway to the underworld. It sealed the ancient evil god Sui Shur. However, due to its damage, there was a leak, which is why the Night Terror appeared in the human world. But right now, they needed to focus more on how to deal with the Night Terror. Robert initially wanted to use Ravi to find it, but unexpectedly, the Night Terror came to them instead. With a strange tremor, the Night Terror approached Renata again. She pretended to help it, but led it into a trap. The surrounding mirrors completely trapped it. However, Aela was actually enchanted by it. Renata had no choice but to sacrifice herself to save her. Thus, Renata transformed into an elderly woman with white hair. However, the night terror did not end there. A part of it took the opportunity to enter Maggie's body. After this incident, Robert decided to eliminate Sui Sure. At this moment, Renata informed him that there was a stone jar that was the key to defeating Sui Sure, but they didn't know that the jar had already been seized by the intelligence department. Upon receiving the news, Robert immediately drove back to London, but on the way, the night terror inside Maggie caused trouble again. It even took control of the entire car. Even Robert was powerless against it. He exerted all his strength, but could only save Ravi. But worse still, people from the Shadow Syndicate appeared here. Farola used some equipment to take away the night terror and prepared to kill Robert. However, the situation took another turn. Gasson arrived with Bella and others. They managed to drive away Farola and the others. Why did they appear here? Gasson explained that he had received a call earlier, informing him that Robert needed help somewhere. That's why he brought people here. On the other side, after the Shadow Syndicate obtained the night terror, internal conflicts arose. Farola wanted to revive Dawn, but his subordinates wanted to resurrect Sui Sure. As a result, Farola had Silas subdue the others. He used the night terror to revive Dawn. Dark clouds heralded the return of terror. The intelligence department personnel went on high alert. Meanwhile, Robert went to find Clark, hoping to protect his beloved, but he discovered her identity as an intelligence agent. The shock made Robert lose control immediately. Seeing this situation, the chief tried to sow discord between them, hoping to dissuade Clark from the idea of marriage. However, this foolish action completely enraged Robert. If it weren't for the timely arrival of others from the intelligence department, the chief would have been killed. Meanwhile, after Dawn was revived, he gained all the powers of the night terror. He decided to reclaim the stone jar and bring Sui Sure back to the human world. The perspective returned to Robert's side. In the prison, he deeply reflected on many things. Perhaps their initial encounter was part of the other's plan, but Clark had already fallen in love with him. That's why she let Robert go. Thus, Robert returned to the manor once again. On the other side, revived Dawn was manufacturing a large number of undead zombies to reclaim the jar. He also met his old friend, the Cutter. After all, more than 20 years ago, Dawn was the one who found the hidden Robert siblings with him. If it weren't for Lewis's timely intervention, both of them would have been captured by Dawn. However, in the end, Aela still fell into Dawn's hands, but Dawn was not just there to reminisce. He released the Cutter, and the entire intelligence department fell into chaos. All the imprisoned monsters escaped. Among them was a monster with distorted features, which could cause many soldiers to mentally break down just by using its mind. The jar was also stolen. Amidst the chaos, meanwhile, Robert suddenly received a call from Aela. She revealed a shocking piece of news. The jar contains Sui Sure's heart. It must be destroyed immediately after opening. Otherwise, the heart would grow stronger and eventually destroy everything just by beating. Upon hearing this news, Robert immediately used the drug to transform into his evil persona. He prepared to destroy the jar, but he didn't expect that Dawn arrived with the jar. A battle between them was about to break out. However, Dawn, who possessed the powers of the night terror, overpowered everyone with just his roar. Even more terrifying was that Dawn was already able to open the jar. In an instant, a tremendous energy pierced through the world. Everything seemed to freeze. Only Robert could still move. He exerted all his strength to rush towards the jar, trying to destroy it before the heart could recover. He aimed to completely shatter it, but the moment he made contact, a powerful shockwave burst forth. Would he be able to successfully destroy the heart? Would the Earth be destroyed just like that? The film ends here. Black and white anomalies, also known as Dr. Jekyll, is unique compared to other superhero TV shows. This film stands out for its distinctive approach. It uses the division of good and evil personas. Perhaps the early plot is a bit slow, but it becomes more exciting as it progresses. If you enjoy my channel, please give me a subscription.